My delicious co-creators, this is Lilou. I'm at the Tao Garden for part 2 of this interview with Angela because she has some really good information. Part 1 was all about the quantum world, and I really, really enjoyed this conversation. And if you haven't seen it, please check it out. This one is on being vegetarian, vegan, and actually Angela has a different, how do we say this, angle?
Well, my angle developed out of 43 years of working with people, and I actually tried to be a vegetarian, and I'm an O blood type, and I had a nervous breakdown after 7 years. It didn't work because I didn't know that O's couldn't be healthily a vegetarian. So that's how I began to develop understanding way before, because I'm 66 and I started this in my 20s. So I started working with people and found out later about the blood type diets, and it made sense. And what they don't tell you about the blood type diet is you have 2 genes. You have one from mom and one from dad. And with the blood type test, they only give you the one, the A, the B, the AB, or the O. So they don't tell you what the other one is. And so what happens is the ones, I hope, shall I talk about what those blood types mean? And
and why?
Written?
Yes.
Okay, so what you need to know is that these doctors, a biochemist and his son, did research, and what they found, looking at antibody reactions, is that the O's were like plains people. They were the people who went out hunting, and they ate meat, raw meat, and anything they could grab on the way, vegetables, eggs if they were lucky enough to find one. But they were mainly the meat eaters. And then some people went and settled down and started growing things, and those people turned into an A blood type. And then people climbed the mountains. And up in the mountains, they mainly had sheep, goats, and fruits, and maybe some vegetables and greens too, and some grains. So this is how our diets began to change. And so what they've done is they've correlated which foods are actually working for the different blood types. But unfortunately, in our culture, we don't test for both genes. It's expensive to look at the genes. So they do this really good, cheap blood test that only gives you one. And everybody's following half of their blood type, but they're not looking at the other gene. So the A's, 90% of the time, have an O gene that goes with it.
So you're saying we should all eat meat then?
Well, if almost everybody has an O gene, it's really hard for most people to be 100% vegetarian. So I tell my vegetarians, 90% of who are really A and O, to be maybe eat eggs in the morning, eat a little meat maybe with their vegetables for lunch, and then for supper be a vegetarian completely, so that half of their day is vegetarian, the other half is giving their bodies what they really need.
But how about for ideological reasons?
Oh, well, but that's the difficult part. I've met one healthy vegan, period, and one healthy vegetarian in 43 years of diagnosing and treating as a licensed Oriental medical doctor and PhD in biochemistry from Berkeley, California, University of California, which is like the top biochemistry department next to Harvard. I'm not prejudiced, but it is. It's very good. So with all that knowledge behind me and Chinese medicine, where I got to know whether they had enough blood in their body. You can't even determine that with Western medicine. I can tell what percentage volume of blood you don't have enough of. And when I can figure that out, then I know whether you're eating, whether you're digesting, because I can tell what every organ's energy is doing. So putting that all together, plus the blood type, and I always ask them if they know their mother and father, because if the father or mother is an O and the other one's an A, then they know they have an O gene, because an O has 2 O genes.
So what ideally do you think the portion of meat or fish we can have, or eggs, or is egg enough? I mean, how is this? Because a lot of us are become more and more vegetarian, not just for that, because it feels like our vibration are getting higher too when we don't eat meat.
Well, that's what people say, but if you study starvation, people who are starving feel euphoric and blissful. So I'm not always sure they're really feeling euphoric, or maybe they're starving a little bit. So I always require them to stick out their tongue if you want to. Are you being vegetarian?
I just, oh my God.
Uh-oh, she didn't know I was going to put her on the spot. Okay, it's not too, you're doing pretty well. How long have you been a vegetarian?
It's been just more and more the past. I do, when my body feels like it needs food or fish, I would have it. It's not a strict vegetarian, and I would have eggs. But I used to be raw vegan.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of glad, because it's very difficult. As I said, I've only met one woman who really made sure she got vitamin B12. It's really hard. And I have to say, this year she contracted dengue fever in Thailand, which makes me wonder if her immune system is as strong as it could have been. So for you, Lilou, I would like to talk about fish for a second, because people think fish is equivalent to meat. It isn't. Because fish does not use iron in their blood. Did you know that? They use manganese in their blood. So they say, there's a saying in America that fish is brain food and not blood food. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a woman, as you know, we cleanse our blood because we don't need it when we don't get pregnant every month. We're losing quite a bit of blood. So women think that fish will replace their blood. Well, it doesn't. It only replaces the brain, which is good to do also, but it isn't significant in the blood type diet. Eggs, on the other hand, they give you everything. People in our culture are against eggs because of that old cholesterol scare, but it got thrown out. The research never said that what you ate affected your level of cholesterol, only triglycerides a little bit.
So it could be eggs and not meat and fish.
It can be eggs if you eat a lot every day. Yeah, it can be eggs. I think if you're strong, it might work for you. It didn't work for me. I had to go to meat, but then I'm an O blood type.
Yeah. How much then? Are we talking every day, every meal? Is it lunchtime, as you said? Yeah,
What's your blood?
It's personalized. No, not for me. Just in general, like the general guideline. I know it's personalized and it's not something, but in general, how much meat do we even need to eat?
Like the Chinese have shown us, they eat a little bit with their vegetables. You don't need to eat a whole steak like we used to in America.
Beef.
A whole cow. And that was, too much. Yeah. So no, you don't have to. You can eat 3 to 4 ounces is kind of what they tell us now a day, and a couple eggs. And I think you can spread that 4 ounces out. Maybe you can do 2 ounces for lunch and 2 ounces for dinner. When you're an O blood type, I need to spread it out. I really do. I feel better. I sleep better. I had terrible insomnia when I was a vegetarian because my blood went down and my memory got poor. Those are all signs when your hair falls out. Those are all signs, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, that your blood volume is going down. Uh-huh. So that's how, and cold hands and cold feet.
I've got that.
Well, the blood is kept in the middle to keep you alive because you can't live without your heart, your liver, and your kidneys. So the blood stays here and the hands get cold and the feet get cold. So that's your first sign that the blood volume is getting low. Yeah. So if I were you, I'd add more eggs, I would say, if you're being a vegetarian. Yeah. And see how you do. If your hands get warm again, you're probably doing okay. There's also some wonderful Chinese herbs. After I was a vegetarian and kind of fell apart a bit, that's when I discovered Chinese medicine. And I want to give my teacher, Dr. Lam Kong from San Francisco, a lot of kudos, that means thanks and confidence, because he's the one who taught me about a lot of these techniques of how to recognize a person's symptoms as blood deficiency, whether they're just low in blood, low in yang, or low in yin, and then what herbs to give them. So there's really good herbs like the 8 Treasures that was developed as a prescription to help women who have pain on their periods and getting cold hands, cold feet, hair falling out, which for men is a real sign. And for them, you need the 6 flavors, another famous Chinese prescription. So when a vegetarian finds they need more blood, I recommend some herbs too. And of course, I recommend doing some quantum shifting so that you stop judging the meat eating as something so bad. I was blessed to live with the Hopi Indians. Now, the Hopi Indians are one of the most ancient cultures in America that really respected life. I call them the original Taoists because they really resemble the Chinese. They probably have roots. In fact, the southern Chinese understand Hopi. So there is a connection there.
Especially when you speak of the cosmos.
Exactly. They really, when they kill an animal, a rabbit, they say thank you and kill it in the same moment. And then they feed it. They put cornmeal around it before they eat it and say, please, come back again. And so when I felt that, I said, you know what? I can eat meat and feel the reverence and the gratitude that we need to feel for these animals that give us, their lives. And then I realized that was the real issue for me, was not eating the meat. It was that I really didn't have that grace and gratitude. And that's what I felt. The vegetarianism wants to come back to the natural way. The natural way is to be grateful and to raise the animals in a happy, healthy way, which, of course, I live in Hawaii, so I get to experience that. I get to see the cows out in the fields grazing for the grass and being happy. Yeah. And I think that's what
we eat happy meat too, because that's the thing. That's another problem in our societies. Where do you find the good meat and the happy fish? And I know here the food is great, but
Well, I think if we want it and we ask for it, we'll get more of it. And that's it. With that awareness, I think they'll start doing it. And that's what you find. People are wanting more organic vegetables. There are more people out there growing organic vegetables. And I recommend that people start growing their own, And I want chickens, except they always eat my garden because I live on a very small space. So the neighbors didn't like my chickens because they made noise and pooped. What they're
being chickens.
Yeah, it's okay. So I buy my chicken eggs from other people, but I do grow my own vegetables on a postage-size stamp piece of land. Very small. And I learned that from John Jeevons. He taught me how to grow enough food to feed, I forget it was 10 people on, a square meter. It's unbelievable how much food you can grow when you really look at how to do it with John Jeevons. So it was something like that. So that's
related to the previous video we have done on quantum. It all depends how we look at it, because then, boom, the solution comes.
Exactly. That's it. When you ask, you do receive. When you knock, in fact, you don't have to wait. You just have to do it, because in the quantum world, the knocking, I'm going to use one of my mirror calls here. If I knock on the mirror, shows it to me immediately. Yeah. So as I stop the judging, the food works.
Let's knock. Thank you so much, Angela.
Oh, thank you again. I love you.
Big, big kisses to all of your delicious co-creators. We love you.
Aloha.
Aloha. From Thailand.
Yeah, well, but I'll be there.
Yes. Very soon. Yeah. Bye. Much love. Aloha. Mahalo.
years of working with people, and I actually tried to be a vegetarian, and I'm an O blood type. And I had a nervous breakdown after 7 years. It didn't work because I didn't know that O's couldn't be healthily a vegetarian. So that's how I began to develop understanding way before, because I'm 66 and I started this in my 20s. So I started working with people and found out later about the blood type diets, and it made sense. And what they don't tell you about the blood type diet is you have 2 genes. You have one from mom and one from dad. And with the blood type test, they only give you the one.
My delicious co-creators, this is Lilou at the Tao Garden for part 2 of this interview with Angela, because she has some really good information. Part 1 was all about the quantum world, and I really, really enjoyed this conversation. And if you haven't seen it, please check it out. This one is on being vegetarian, vegan, and actually Angela has a different, how do we say this, angle?
Well, my angle developed out of 43 years. One, the A, the B, the AB, or the O. So they don't tell you what the other one is. And so what happens is the ones, I hope, shall I talk about what those blood types mean? And
and why?
Written?
Yes.
Okay, so what you need to know is that these doctors, a biochemist